everyone, and welcome to this short course on how to create floor plans that work. I really appreciate you joining me. My name is Helen, and I want to say a big thank you to everyone who responded on social media when I was investigating what sort of course people would be interested in. So this is my first one, and thank you very much for your input. So today, you don't need any experience. This isn't a university lecture. We're going to go back to basics and learn how to draw floor plans from scratch for your own homes. I have recorded part of this course because that gives me a little bit of an opportunity to look at emails. So if you have any issues, please do email me and I'll answer any questions at the end. I won't be able to go through all the configurations and all the issues that are concerning floor plans, but hopefully I'll get through to a few questions, and if I don't answer yours, I will email you after the course. My email address is helen@homebydesign.co.uk. That's helen@homebydesign.co.uk. Right. A little bit of background. My company name is At Home by Design, if you hadn't guessed. And my design story really is wrapped around travel and culture. I've been lucky enough to have visited more than 60 countries. Unfortunately, not a list that's likely to get any longer anytime soon. I've also lived and worked and studied in the US, in Dubai and Singapore, and I now live in Milford in Surrey, which has some fantastic architecture. And I really love juxtaposing the old and new. There's some super examples of older architecture here, and putting that together with newer interiors is always very interesting. So why now? Why am I doing this course now? Well, we're spending more time at home. We're living at home, we're resting at home, we're working at home, and when we're allowed, we're socializing too. I'm seeing a trend in colour coming through where people are looking at colour as a way of boosting their moods. But before we create our designs and introduce colour, we really need to go back to the first step, which is all about floor plans. We need to work out what furniture will fit in our rooms or what size furniture we need to buy. So I'm going to switch to the presentation now, and there's going to be 10 minutes of theory, followed by 10 minutes of practical, and then I'll come back at the end and answer some of the questions. Many thanks. So let's look at the theory. This isn't going to be death by PowerPoint, but let's go back to basics so we're all on the same page. This is what we're going to cover today. We're going to look at what a floor plan actually is and its role. We'll then go through how to draw your own basic plans. The next step is to define your style, which has a huge influence on the layout and scheme you put together. And finally, we'll look at how to tackle the layout of the furniture. So, what's a floor plan? A floor plan is a bird's eye view, as if you were attached to the ceiling. Essentially, it's a scale drawing, usually in the scale of 1 to 25, 1 to 50, or 1 to 100. The scale you use depends on how much detail you want to go into. For example, if you were doing a room, this could easily be depicted in a scale of 1 to 25, which means that 1 metre equals 4 centimetres. However, if you draw the downstairs of your house, you would need a very large piece of paper if you were doing it in this scale. It would be much better suited to a scale of 1 to 50, where 1 metre would be represented by 2 centimetres. So why do you need a floor plan? Well, floor plans allow you to see the space all at once, so you can plan where your furniture is going to go and how the spaces relate to each other. It enables you to see whether your furniture will fit into a space or what size of furniture you need to buy. To do this, you'll need to know the size of your room and the size of your furniture. If you're lucky enough to have an estate agent's plan, that's great, that's a good starting point, but please don't rely on them. They're very good for giving you the overall shape of the room, but they're not designed to be used to plan furniture in detail and may have inaccuracies. In fact, the property guru Phil Spencer from Location did an experiment on his own home where he invited 3 independent planners to come and measure up his house. And he found that there was an error margin between them of about 4%. This doesn't actually sound a lot, but it could be the difference of your sofa fitting into your lounge or not. So why the discrepancies? Well, essentially an estate agent's plan is a sales tool, so they want to make the space look as large as possible. They might miss off an alcove or a little bit of detail that would be important to a scheme that you want to put together. They're a great guide, but you do need to get out your own measuring tools and do the work. So how do you draw a floor plan? A floor plan for your home doesn't have to be perfect. It's not a professionally drawn piece of art, and you don't need a computer, although there are plenty of free online tools that can help. It's just a practical tool to help you create a plan that works for your rooms. You'll need a sharp pencil, a rubber and a scale ruler. The scale ruler is the most important tool in your toolbox, as it converts real life measurements into scaled versions. As I said before, if you're working in a scale of 1 to 25, 1 metre would become 4 centimetres on paper. They cost between £5 and £10 and are either flat or triangular. So start by measuring your room and draw a rough sketch. You need to keep a note of the dimensions. Start with the walls and add in the windows. The individual elements you add in are important because they'll have a bearing on where you place furniture. Make sure you know the exact positions of the windows, and also you might want to make a note of the height of the windows. Is it a low window that you want to see out of, or is there room for a chest of drawers to be placed below it? Add in any cupboards, doors and built-in furniture, and draw in the door swings. This is the area that the door covers when it travels. And they're important because you don't want to place any furniture in their way, otherwise you won't be able to open the door. Add in any utilities, which are things like electrical sockets and plumbing. As you can see on this diagram here, there are several sockets in this room, which are marked by semicircles and a little spiky thing coming out of it. And they'll tell me where I can place lamps, and it also makes me mindful of any dangerous trailing flexes. The plumbing elements are only really important in bathrooms, kitchens and bedrooms with sinks. There are conventional architectural symbols that you can use, but you can just make something up for your own use. If you have any height limited elements, such as low ceilings around a dormer window, add these in too with a dotted line. A dotted line depicts height restrictions, and it helps us to know what might be in the way of how we move around a room. For example, if you want to turn an attic room into a bedroom, if the ceiling is sloped, you'll want to know where the height restrictions are, or you won't be able to walk around the bed. Finally, add in any light pendants and radiators, as these will have a bearing on where furniture will be placed too. On this drawing, the light pendants are the dotted circles with a cross in them. The next stage is to understand your style and the style of your house. The age and style of your house will have an influence on the type of design that works. If you have an old house, there'll also be bits and pieces that you need to take note of. For example, radiators may have been added at a later date, and they might be in inconvenient positions, limiting where you put furniture. Or you might have a modern space, which is open plan, in which case you may want to consider creating various zones for eating, relaxing, watching television, etc., and furniture can be used to do this. The function of the room dictates to a certain extent what furniture will be required. Your table and chairs are probably not in your bedroom, but it's not just the type of furniture, it's how it's used. Understanding the main way a room is used helps you to understand how much space and importance various pieces of furniture need. You may have an open plan kitchen diner and enjoy the social space this creates. Do you need to include softer seating, sofas, bar stools? I did have a client who had a large lounge and she couldn't get her floor plan to work. She had made the mistake of pushing all the furniture to the edges of the room. This meant that talking to people was quite difficult because the seating was quite far apart and it wasn't very intimate. She hadn't thought of putting a sofa in the middle of the room, but by moving a sofa perpendicular to the wall and at right angles to the second sofa, a conversational space was created. And having a sofa in the middle of the room acted as a room divider. The other section of the room was used as a playroom, using IKEA cube storage to create mini walls, so she could have a cup of coffee while keeping an eye on the children. Your personal style will also have an influence on the space you want to create. When you ask someone what they like, it's a difficult question to answer. More often than not, they know what they don't like. And that's a great starting point too. I use an app called Pinterest, which many of you will have heard of, and the Pinterest boards are a brilliant way to find out what you like. You can have it in app format on your phone or iPad, or you can use it as a website on your web browser. It gives you the opportunity to collect photos in one place and create a mood board. And over time, you'll get to know what you like and what you don't like. You might know that you hate clutter, but you don't know how to store it. And this could simply be a matter of adding a trunk to the end of your bed. You might have been left a vase by Great Aunt Bessie, but you're not sure whether you like it or not. In actual fact, I have one of those vases, and it was my granddad's. And it's of great sentimental value, but it reminded me of an old person's home. That is, until I found the right location for it. So sometimes it's just about positioning. How people move around a room is also important, because that has a bearing on where furniture is placed. You don't want to have to keep walking around the kitchen table each time you need to find some crockery in the dresser. You don't want to keep knocking your shins on the huge piece of furniture you put on the landing, misjudging its size. Finally, you might want to think about a focal point. Which direction do you want people to be looking in? What do you want them to see when they enter a room? If you want everyone to watch the TV, you're probably not going to put a sofa with its back to it. If you crave a little sunny corner for some comfy chairs to have a cup of coffee, you probably need to know where the sun is. So on to the final step in the theory, and that's how you create the layout. Up until now, we've been doing the legwork that helps us create the room layout. And it might seem long-winded, but without going through these steps, you'll find it difficult to create a layout that works. So first of all, keep in mind the main purpose of the room and keep checking your layout against this. It provides a framework to work with. Then make a list of all the furniture that you want to use, anything that will touch the floor. Draw it to scale on separate pieces of paper so you can move it around the outline plan you've already drawn, and you can change the layout until you're happy. It allows you to move a room around without involving a chiropractor, really. You need to consider the ergonomics. This is the size and movement of the human body. There's no point in creating a cosy sofa and coffee table layout if your knees are catching on the table. And another example, you might want to create a corner desk in the corner of a room, but if you can't get the chair out from under the desk, that's not going to work either. I've said this before, but please don't feel you have to push the furniture up against the wall, even in the smallest rooms. Even if you just leave a couple of centimetres, it just allows the room to breathe. Another common mistake is that people like to cram in too many pieces of furniture. Just because technically there's room, have a think about whether it adds to the room or whether it just fills it up. If your room is a regular shape, sometimes it helps to draw dotted lines from corner to corner so you can get an idea of where the centre of the room is, and that allows you to line things up. And when laying out your scale size furniture, have a look at where the light pendants are. Have a think about where the focal point is in the room. Is it the fireplace? Do you want it to be the TV or the view out of the window? I had a client that was mindful that everyone should see the TV easily from the sofas. However, this meant one sofa was in front of the French doors, blocking out a beautiful view to the garden. She didn't want the TV to be the focal point of the room either, but she felt constrained by where the television socket was. With the little help of an electrician, a new socket was created on the other side of the room, meaning she could have a view of the TV and the garden. And the added bonus was there was no longer a reflection of the TV on the window, from the window rather. Where possible, I like to use the view of the garden. It becomes an extension of the room and of a house. Your eye is drawn outside and it makes a room feel bigger. The next step is to check that the space works and that people can move around it naturally. I like to do this by drawing a line from the door, like a heat map, to show the possible ways people can move around the space. And that way you get to see whether any furniture gets in the way and whether you've got enough room. And then the final design element is the details and the accessories. The standard lamps, the small tables, the large plants. If you don't allow room for them in the space often doesn't work. They're the practical elements that make space livable, and as well as the details and knickknacks that give a room a character and interest. But again, don't cram the room full. So finally, when you've got the layout where you want it and you think you're happy with it, leave it on the side for a couple of days and glance at it as you walk by. And very often you'll spot things that don't quite work, or you'll think of another new idea. So I hope that's helped in terms of the theory, and we can see how this now works in practice. So let's go through the process. This is my room here, which I've already drawn to scale using 1:25. We have an entrance here and some patio doors to the garden here, a fireplace and hearth, and there are two little windows here and here, and I've made a note of the windowsill height, which is 900mm. I've made a note of the electrical sockets, which are here, 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 here and here, and there's also a TV point in this corner here. Finally, these dotted circles indicate light pendants. The dotted line, let's move that out of the way again, the dotted line from corner to corner shows me where the centre of the room is, and it helps me to line things up, gives me an indication of where I can place furniture. And there's some sort of harmony in lining things up, I find. So first, I have to assess how the room is going to be used. There are two main functions to this space. We watch TV here, and it's where I'm going to sit and have a cup of coffee and a good old natter. So I'm going to prioritise those pieces of furniture. And here are the pieces of furniture I think are going to go in this room. I've got a sofa, a love seat, a TV chest and with a TV, a coffee table, a console table, a separate chair, that's a standard lamp, that's a tall chest of drawers, and there's two little lamps. So that's what I think is going to go in this room. Next I need to choose a focal point. Well, I want to be able to see the TV, but I don't want to look like we have to pay homage to the TV when you come in the room. So I want to make sure it's off to the side, which it naturally is because that's where the TV point is. The fireplace is an obvious focal point in the winter, and the view of the garden through the front doors is a great view in the summer. So now I can start adding the furniture. I'm going to start with the biggest pieces of furniture that address my assessment of how the room is going to be used. So that's the TV unit and the sofas. I'm going to start with the TV unit as I'm restricted by the TV point. And I'm going to put it at an angle over here. Firstly, this makes it easier to see. And secondly, the TV is on a lovely chest of drawers and I don't want it to look like it's been shoved in the corner if I have it like this. So I'm going to have it at an angle. Don't feel you have to put your furniture against the walls. So let's take the big sofa. This wall here is the natural place for it to go. It's the largest expanse of wall in the room. And place here, it means I can look straight into the garden. So I'm going to place it in the middle. And it will also have a clear view of the TV. But I'm going to leave it a couple of inches from the wall. And let's call that room to breathe. The next piece of furniture I'm going to place is the love seat, which is a smaller settee. I wouldn't want to place it over here, although that's the next biggest wall. It doesn't really have a function there. It just looks like I don't know where else to put it. It's always nice to have symmetry, and I love a setup of 2 sofas in front of a hearth. But that setup works better with 2 sofas of the same size. And it also blocks my view to the garden. It's something quite uncomfortable about sitting in a seat when the view's behind you. If I put the second sofa against this wall over here, it's too far away. Not only is it impossible to have a conversation, but people walking into the room will be walking right in front of me. So I'm going to move the sofa over here. I'm going to line it up with the hearth as the centre point, and it creates a nice little conversational section here. Both seats can see the garden and the television, and they also both make the most of the fireplace. Now it's obvious where my coffee table can go, and I'm going to place it this way around underneath the light. Let's move things along, make sure they're all lined up. It's a long, narrow room, similar shape to the coffee table actually. If I put the coffee table the same orientation as the room, it would make the room look even longer. So I'm going to make it parallel to this love seat and to the hearth, like that. I don't want the room to feel restrictive. Now it needs a little bit of jiggling around, because I want to make sure there's enough leg room, no one's going to knock their shins, and that it's all lined up comfortably. The other thing when considering where to place your coffee table is that you want to be able to put your coffee cup on the coffee table. The clue's in the name. So it needs to be within arm reach and not too far away. Don't put it too close either, or as I said, you might bang your knees on it. A tip is literally to give it leg room. When sitting in a seat, lift your legs up so they're straight, and that's about the right distance. Now we've got the main bits of furniture in place, let's have a look at the space we have left. What are we going to do with this space? Not all space has to be practical. As people walk into the room, it's nice to create an impression, and at the moment they're looking at the back of the sofa. Have a look at your sofa back to see if it's presentable. You can always hang a throw off the back if it isn't. You have to have the space. If you have the space, you may wish to add a console table, which I do, and I have. And it needs to be the height of the sofa or a couple of inches shorter. So if I put that there, and then I can add some photos to it, and that's a better view when people walk in. I'm also going to add some lamps, because I can see from my plan that I have an electrical socket over here. And what I can do is, there we go, trail the flex underneath the sofa, this settee, this love seat, to this socket. Now we've got this gap here, and it's a bit of unfinished space. What I want to put here is an end table. I don't currently have one, but it would hide, I want something that's going to hide the flexes and fill this space, and it's also a place for coffee cups. So when I get my ruler, I literally measure the space. It's 1 to 25, which is, here we go. So the settee is 1 metre wide, and that's both of them. So I know I need an end table that's no bigger than 1 metre squared. And I would also make a note of the arm height to make sure that it isn't taller than the sofa as well. Now 1 metre squared is quite big, but that gives me a maximum space. Right, I've still got this space here. I could use it for a sideboard. I have considered a bookshelf across the room because there's no storage in this room, but the issue is the door would bang on it and there's not actually enough room behind it, and if it was sticking out it would just get in the way. You'd end up hitting it as you walked into the room. So I actually want something that's quite low or lower, and not as wide. I mean, lining it up with the sofa is quite nice. So a sideboard that's half a bookcase and perhaps half somewhere to store all that gin. Very important. So again, I'm going to measure the shape, the size of the shape that I have, and add it to my shopping list. Now I'm going to look at the smaller negative spaces. You don't have to fill every space, but you do need balance. And what I do want in this room is some extra chairs, but I don't want to clutter up this end of the room, and I don't want to block the view to the garden. So I'm going to add a chair to this corner over here. And actually, I'm going to add the lamp here as well. I'm going to tuck it underneath because the lampshade is quite tall, quite wide, and the lamp is taller than the chair, so it will provide a nice little reading spot there. And then the chair can be moved along here when we have guests and need extra space. So that's where my chair is going to go. And I'm going to look at something in this area. Now this is just for a matter of balance. I don't need anything here, but I want something to balance off the TV and be either side of the fireplace. And I do have a little chest, which again I'm going to put at an angle. I could even put a lamp on it. There's a socket there. Right, I'm happy with my furniture placement. So now I'm going to turn my attention to detail. Again, like I started with the biggest pieces of furniture, I'm going to start with the biggest spaces. Along this wall and above the fireplace, I've already have the mantle in my mind as a focal point, so I need to consider what artwork I have to go here, or perhaps a mirror, no bigger than the width of the mantle, I think. What you put on the wall and your accessories are going to be influenced by the scheme and colours you put together. You may be working with existing curtains and artwork, or starting from scratch. It's difficult at this stage to say exactly what you need to put in these spaces until the scheme has been developed, but I know the rough sizes of the space that I'm working with, and I can take a note of that. When you're out looking for things to fit the space, especially when it comes to walls, don't think you have to buy a painting. Of course, there may be art that you love, but blank walls are also a great way to display collections. In my house, on my walls, I have collections of maps, wooden carvings, masks from around the world. In one corner, I'd like to add a hanging plant. There are a lot of creative options. That is essentially how the practical element works. I've tried to provide some guidelines to help you avoid the most common mistakes, and after that, it sometimes comes down to trial and error. Unless you want to trip to the chiropractor, the best way to do this is through scale drawings like this. Right, I hope that's given you a little bit of a flavour for the theory and the practical, and I'm going to take the rest of the time now just to answer a few of the questions that have come in. Hi, I hope you found that useful. If you're still struggling with your drawings, please do get in contact. I do offer a drawing service. In fact, there's a number of cost-effective DIY packages on my website designed to support people who are looking to do their own interior design at home. It's just a little bit of a helping hand. So do go and have a look. And also on the website at the moment is a £25 voucher. So I'm going to have a look at some of the questions. I have one here from Wendy. In fact, we have 3 Wendys on the call today. Thank you very much for joining me. You want to know how to make an open plan space work for everyone. She says, I need to be able to work the kids need to be able to do their homework, and I have a toddler too. The one word that covers this is zones. I would make a list of everything you do in the space, all the tasks and activities that take place. I'd then prioritize them so you've got a better understanding what problems are essential to solve and ones that are just nice to solve. Once you've done that, you can have a look at your empty floor plan that you've drawn and divide the space up into zones based on tasks. You can do this using furniture and rugs as well to demark different areas. Sometimes it is just trial and error, and you will get a good feeling when everything falls into place. So keep going at it, and I hope some of those tips help. I have time for one more question. This one's from Mel. Thanks again for joining me. She has asked whether you can make a small room look bigger. I would earn a lot of money if I had a magic wand to answer this question. But there is quite a bit that you can do. So starting with paint choice, there are a lot of light reflecting paints around at the moment. There's also a lot you can do with lighter shades and darker shades to add depth to a room. But in terms of furniture, the most important thing is to make sure your furniture is in the right proportion for the room. We all love a really big, massive, squishy sofa. It's really lovely to cuddle up on. But if we've got one of those and it's touching all the sides of all the walls in our lounge, it's really not going to work. You're going to make the room feel smaller than it actually is. So keep everything in proportion. The other thing I would say is keep everything simple. It's nice to have lots of things out on surfaces to look at, but all those ornaments are just going to make a room look really, really busy. So keep to clean lines and make the most of all the storage that you have. Finally, you can look at the orientation of the furniture. As you saw from the practical element of the presentation with the coffee table, I could make the room look longer and narrower by having the coffee table in one direction, but by turning it 90 degrees, it had the effect of bringing the walls in a little bit. So have a play with the orientation of your furniture. And in the example in the presentation, it could be that a round coffee table would have worked better. The coffee table that was there was the one that I had, but there are other solutions. So that's a few ideas I hope will help. I'm afraid that's all we've got time for now. If I haven't answered your question, I will answer them on email, so I will get back to you. I'll also be sending you a checklist of the things that we've covered today. And I'll be looking for feedback, good or constructive. It's all great to hear your comments. Finally, if you want some more insights and tips, follow me on social media. I'm on Facebook and on Instagram, so do keep an eye out. And that just leaves me to say thank you and goodbye.